We were shocked at how high the rent increase was. My flatmate and I wouldn't be able to afford that increase based on the jobs we have and what we currently earn.
We love this area and we've lived here for the past 6 years. We desperately wanted to stay and we were more than prepared to stay.
London rents increased by 17% during 2022. That's the highest year-on-year increase the city has recorded since 2007. On average, London's renters, who are single earners, spend 48.4% of their income on rent. In 2021, that figure was just 42.7%. Many renters are fighting their landlords on proposed rent increases or are being forced to move as they can no longer afford to pay rent for their homes.
Upon closely reading the tenancy agreement with our other tenants in the building, we realised that together we could communicate in a way that would challenge the process of the proposed increase.
There was no way that we could afford to heat or eat on that budget with our rent probably being about a good 90% of my pay packet.
There are also no rent controls in London, meaning that landlords have the power to charge as much rent as they think is reasonable and can get. In a highly competitive market with more demand than supply for rental properties, this has led to sky-high prices that are unaffordable for many. Renters can try to negotiate or say no, but then they run another risk, being evicted.
My name's Daniel Lloyd, I'm 26 years old and our landlord has proposed to increase our rent by 27%.
My name's Dave Trauner, I'm 33 and our rent went up 26%.
So, how did we get here? And what does it all mean for renters in London? London is a city of close to 9 million people, spread out over around 607 square miles, which is about twice as large as New York City. From skyscrapers in the city centre to family homes in the suburbs, it is a highly diverse city and an international hub.
Inner London covers the sort of central part of London. It covers an area that's sort of maybe 20 to 30 minutes commute by public transport. It covers all the international areas. When you get out into the suburbs of London, which is far more of a market dominated by houses, maybe sort of 35, 40, 50 minutes commute out of the centre, rents fall. So, moving into outer London, there's better value for money, and so you get people on higher incomes moving there. The other thing I'd also add is London's seen a lot of improvement in public transport, so we've also opened up new markets.
Strong transport links are one of the advantages Daniel and his flatmate enjoy about their home, which is located in outer London.
London is just the best place to live. There are so many things to do, outdoors and indoors. The transport links are fantastic and enable us to get to all sorts of different places, to see different people, to meet different people.
Daniel and his flatmate also have to live in London for their jobs.
We love the city and the opportunities that it gives. For me, as a reporter, I travel a lot to motor races, therefore I need access to London's airports.
As a writer and comedian, Dave's job also ties him to the city.
I unfortunately don't really have too much choice in where I'm based, so I have to really be in the capital. I love London. It's absolutely incredible. I think it's a beautiful city to live in, and to be honest, I think it gets better as time goes on.
When the pandemic happened, lockdowns meant that London was suddenly much less attractive to live in. Restaurants, bars and activities were shut down, and working from home meant people no longer had to live in the city to commute to work.
So what we saw over the pandemic was a big hit to demand. People couldn't travel to the UK, offices were closed, the economy effectively shut down, and the supply of rented homes increased as landlords who typically rent properties to tourists and short-term visitors put those homes into the long-let market. And so we saw rents fall by about 10 to 15%.
The market was on the side of renters, but as London and the world reopened, the dynamic on the rental market shifted, with prices soaring. In December 2022, the median asking rent for a two-bedroom flat in London was £2,400, compared to £1,900 before the pandemic.
We started 2021 with a massive oversupply of properties. In some parts of London, there was a 50-60% increase in properties on the rental market. So prices were still 20% down from kind of 2019 levels. The demand and supply curve had definitely leveled out, which then brought the beginning of 2022, which was completely different, and the demand was high, and then the stock levels have dramatically reduced.
Daniel lives with his friend in a 2-bedroom flat in southwest London. They moved into the flat in November 2021 and paid a total of £1,400 a month. In October 2022, their landlord proposed to increase their rent by 27% to £1,775. The issue is not just affecting them, but almost everyone living in their building.
We understood that some people in some flats were having their rent increased by £100 per person. That prompted us to knock around and gather people's numbers, get a group chat together on WhatsApp to discuss our rent situations. And it was there that we found out that people were facing increases in excess of 25%, some as much as 30%.
Daniel and some of his neighbours also have a clause in their leases that limits by how much rent can be increased, and believe the landlord's initial suggestion would breach this. They reached out to their property manager to negotiate the increase and received a new offer of £1,750 a month, only £25 less than the original suggested rent increase. They continued to push back, but have not heard anything new from their property manager.
We have used the time to get legal aid from other organisations that are involved in renters' rights, so we have an idea of what directions they could take, but ultimately we're currently sitting, waiting, nervous to see what they're going to say.
High prices and low supply have led to fierce competition amongst renters, who now often feel they have to go to great lengths when trying to secure a property.
We often don't have to ask tenants to offer over asking price. They just offer over asking price because they've lost out on the last 2 or 3 properties that they've bid for. They're offering long leases. You're realising that, they probably don't want to be looking again in another year. I mean, they send us in bios, they send us in pictures. Applicants have got pets, send us in pet CVs.
Many people here in London are feeling overwhelmed with the task of finding a new home. Properties are disappearing from real estate websites within hours, so people need to react to new listings immediately. Scrolling through online property listings, you might find flats advertised for 2 people, but with bunk beds, or rooms so small the door doesn't fully open before hitting the bed frame. These flats now seem to cost what generously sized spaces did just a year ago.
So supply and demand are really out of kilter at the moment. On the supply side, the average London estate agent would typically have had 17 to 20 properties for rent on their books. That's down to 10 or less than 10 at the moment. So there's a real scarcity of homes for renters looking to rent. And now the economy is opening up. Tourism has restarted. We've also got mortgage rates increasing in the UK.
The market is driving this, not estate agents and not landlords. And I think that's probably the misconception. Tenants know they've got to spend over the asking price. We're not necessarily asking them to do that. They are coming forward with a really good offer because they know if they don't offer that, then they're going to lose out.
Many of London's renters, including Dave and his partner, have been forced to move. He has been living in the city for around 11 years and lived in his previous flat in South London for 6 of them. Dave and his partner paid £950 a month for the 1-bedroom flat, but in July 2022, his landlord proposed to increase rent by 26% to £1,200.
We were surprised at how much the rent was going up. And when we said, look, I think it's reasonable that there is going to be inflation. I think it is reasonable that prices do go up. We will negotiate at, say, 15%. Does that sound good to you? And they said, absolutely not. It's 26% increase or nothing. I think paying the higher rental price was absolutely never an option. But also the fact that the landlord had so openly showed a disregard not only for our well-being but also our safety and health. There were people using drugs on our doorstep, there were people urinating on our doorstep as well. They'd set up our gas meter wrongly and also, I think, unsafely as well.
Many of London's renters are still facing an uncertain future as pressures on the rental market are not expected to ease.
Well, I think we've seen the worst of the big increase in rents that we have. But I'm afraid I think rents are going to keep rising at a reasonably rapid rate, maybe in the 4 to 5% bracket, largely because we just don't have enough supply coming through. We really need to see more supply in London. A lot of that's going to come off new build development.
My advice would be to act quickly. You know, it's really important that the references are completed within 24 to 48 hours. It's really important that the contract is signed within 24 to 48 hours. So I would advise renters to think hard about what they'll compromise on, because there will definitely have to be a compromise.
After saving for over a decade, Dave and his partner were able to purchase a flat together on the edge of inner London. Their monthly mortgage is now lower than their increased rent would have been.
We were incredibly fortunate in order to be able to buy somewhere, and I know not everyone is that fortunate as we were, but the difference is now, instead of paying rent to pay somebody else's mortgage, we're now paying our own mortgage to hopefully one day, when the year 3000 comes, to actually pay off our own mortgage.
Dave is also hopeful that there will be long-term savings, as him and his partner can maintain the flat well and make small repairs themselves.
In the long term, actually owning our own flat and being able to nip things in the bud and maintain the place as it should be will actually save us more money.
However, buying a property is not an option for the majority of renters in inner London, as the average property price is £638,000. Daniel and his flatmate are not sure whether they will be able to stay in their current home, so they have been looking at listings for rental flats.
It's difficult, admittedly, to find a 2 double-bedroom flat in London because space is at a premium. However, we have found a few things a bit further out. We would lose a lot of our transport connections that we have to central London.
Paying the higher rent would be impossible for Daniel and his flatmate.
The only other options would be to move back to our parents' houses, but we're 26-year-old professionals. It wouldn't be fair on our parents to do that. So we're determined to remain in our current property, to fight back against the landlord, and to state our claim and get a level of increase that is acceptable and not at the high levels that they've been proposing to multiple people in the building.